Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to LA Noire. Now before I begin today's case, I need to explain something. The final 3 normal cases of the arson desk flow into each other far more than any of the others. You could say the entire game is leading up to this one cinematic experience. And, like many films, this one comes in 3 acts. However, there's also a completely unrelated DLC smack dab in the middle of it which absolutely ruins this pacing. I can kind of understand why they placed it where they did, but no, it wasn't their best decision. The only reason I'm explaining this is because Cole and Herschel will say a couple of things that places the DLC in its chronological context, but once that's done, the DLC story completely takes over. And that's why I'm moving the DLC case to now. So with all that out of the way, let us begin.
Hey, news from Jack. There's a statewide APB out on it.
Jack's okay. He has something up his sleeve. He's not worried about being caught.
How do we help?
We go after the other side of the equation. Jack has a legion and its cronies running scared. We go after the doctor and some of the other guys.
With the whole department breathing down our necks.
It's time for action, Herschel. It's time for change. Jack's crossed the Rubicon and we have to be on the other side.
Christ, what was that?
Explosion. Something big.
You think it's the Reds? You think those Rusky sons of bitches that dropped the H-bomb on us?
Calm down, Herschel. We need to be ready for the call.
I'm not waiting for an invitation. Get in the car and head for the cloud. KGPL can give us the details on the way.
This is a little early for an H-bomb.
All units, reports of an explosion. Location is south of Santa Monica. West of Standby. All units, car 88K reports an explosion downtown. Repeating, 88K is reporting an explosion downtown. All units, stand by for further.
Downtown? Can't be.
Yeah, we're kind of running through the ashes right now.
Location is somewhere in Wilshire. Car 14 Adam reports the address. Units, stand by. Stand by for further.
We have looters around the corner. Cuff them or put them down. We need to get this area under control.
Cops, you little prick! Get that bastard, Cole!
It's literally been a minute since the place exploded. How are there already looters here? It's far more likely that these people are grabbing their own valuables and getting the hell out of here. But then if that's the case, why are they shooting at the police? This is just some sort of senseless action scene crowbarred in, I guess. Well, maybe not completely senseless.
Let's go.
They need some time to load in all these assets.
Jesus. I've never seen nothing like this.
I wish I could say the same. It's like a bomb's gone off. Jesus Christ. Poor people.
We gotta find out what went down.
Yeah, I love the sky effects on this, though. Where's that coming from?
Get delayed somewhere?
Ah.
What in God's name happened here?
Wasn't nuclear. If it was, we'd all be dead from the radiation.
That's reassuring. What's radiation?
Everyone inside the factory was vaporized. Look at the size of that crater.
What's going on over there?
The mayor is going on television, appealing for calm.
Television? Who can afford one of those things?
Anything to go on?
You're looking at the remains of Nicholson electroplating. I have an idea of what might have caused the explosion, but I'm only guessing. Have a look around the rubble, see if you come up with anything.
world's turned upside down, Cole.
Then it's time for us to do our jobs.
Jeez, Cole.
Help me out.
We should search around the edges of the crater, see what the blast tossed up. Vaporized.
Also, why is the mayor going on television instead of radio? There should be a radio broadcaster around here somewhere.
I honestly say I've never seen anything like this. Let's get started.
Sweet heavens. Oh.
I do like how everybody is in shock over this.
Hey, detective! I think I got something here.
I thought Forvix was a break.
Any idea what this is?
A very large egg cup? A Viking helmet? How would I know, Phelps? Try putting it back together.
Looks to me like some kind of machine component. An airplane part, maybe.
Well, you can tell whether it's aluminum or steel, because aluminum is brighter and it weighs much less. That's why it's used in airplane parts. Now, what's that?
Looks like all that's left. Try the laundry tag.
Damn.
Phelps! I think I found something over here.
I think it was the thing that I found.
Detective, you seen this yet? Come take a look.
Blew the locker open, but shielded the contents. Let's see what we got in here. Oh, only OSS agents use these things. We'll need to get the film developed to see if there's an espionage angle.
Well, clearly not only OSS agents.
Any ideas, Herschel?
None that I care to utter for public consumption.
What, too gaudy?
Tomoko Akamoto. Japanese name.
What is it?
A substitution cipher. The Germans used them in the war. These are cipher rings.
You know what to do with them?
Maybe. They used them in OCS. His first letter to the cipher key. The rest of the message should align itself.
Well, hopefully they used a better cipher than this, because this is literally baby's first cipher. It's called the Caesar cipher, where you simply replace one letter in the alphabet with another letter in the alphabet by just adding a number to the letter it's supposed to be. You may notice here that all of the letters are in alphabetical order on both the inside and the outside of the ring. Like, normally they randomize at least one of the two rings. Anyway, you may notice that it is having us manually go through all the letters, but it does keep track for us in the upper left-hand corner, which is nice.
It's an address. 133 North Vermont Avenue.
It didn't even encipher the numbers. What the hell?
What now?
Let's get to the address you took off the code wheel thing. Find out what's there.
It's nice of whoever owned that briefcase to have, like, all the clues neatly arranged like that.
That's it, Mr. Mayor. We're wrapped.
Well, good. Thank you very much, son. And you think it went okay?
Couple of hiccups, sir, but that's to be expected. Nobody's ever done this before. We'll get better with practice.
That maybe goes for me too, son. Should have played it a little more somber. What do you think, son?
No, Mr. Mayor. You came across as, very resolute.
Out of the way, boy. I need to compose myself. You think the suit looks appropriate? Oh, who cares what you think? Get on with the investigation.
This is crazy. Looks like a war zone. See what you can scrape together. Find anything interesting?
Alright, well, I'd like to go to the Superior Laundry place next, but, apparently I can't. Because, you know, I know that Superior Laundry is an important place, but I don't have an address for it.
I'm Fred Nicholson.
This is your place?
What's left of it. 32 years of work up in smoke.
Can you tell us what happened here?
Our chief chemist, Harold McClellan, was using this area to test the new process.
And what exactly is this new process?
That's classified information, son.
Also, it's explosive.
Tell us the truth, Mr. Nicholson. You're making bombs for the military, and this was some kind of an accident.
Your pitch is high and wide, kid. Look, we do plenty of work for the military and for aircraft manufacturers, but it's all polishing and plating. There are no bombs here.
Electroplating is not where you would find explosives.
Sorry. My mistake. A lot of people died here, Mr. Nicholson. I'm prepared to go to the press and tell them it was your fault. What is the new process?
A way to chemically polish aluminum. It's traditionally done by hand. It's extremely labor-intensive. The process could be worth millions.
Who is Tomoko Akamoto?
Dr. McClellan's personal assistant. She came highly recommended.
Akamoto was involved in industrial espionage. Was she working for you or for a foreign government?
That's a ridiculous assertion. How can you possibly say she was a spy?
Well, I got some stuff.
How many of your other employees carry spy cameras in their handbags?
Jesus, Mary and Joseph, she was selling me out.
If she wasn't a foreign spy, who could she have been working for?
There could be other plating companies, but the big customers for the process are the aircraft manufacturers. Lockheed, Boeing, Hughes, North American.
What can you tell us about McClellan?
A brilliant chemist. He approached me a few months ago with the idea for the new process.
So no one has ever done this before?
No, but it's legitimate research.
So you thought McClellan could do what no one else could do? You were prepared to take that risk?
Look, he was a trained chemist, and his ideas could revolutionize electroplating.
And you would be rich.
I'm a businessman. What's wrong with turning a buck?
You blew up 6 blocks! God knows how many people are dead.
I regret that.
That's laudable.
We'll be in touch, Mr. Nicholson. Can you send us Dr. McClellan and Miss Akamoto's personnel files?
I will if I can find them.
By the way, we also found the collar of a shirt. It has a laundry tag.
They're likely to be Dr. McClellan. The majority of people who worked here don't use a laundry service.
So, that was not a handbag, that was a briefcase. Why would she carry her own... one of her own business cards in a briefcase like that?
You gotta be kidding me. We're driving this?
Oh, hell yeah, we're driving this. Watch me style my way through the ruins. All backwards and stuff.
Son of a bitch!
Watch me turn at the tightest possible spot in the ruins. Oh, okay, so this is how we're going to get the address.
You think McGlowan went up in smoke? Is he still alive?
You'd ask the same question about Tamako Akamoto.
I guess you could. You got an answer?
Not yet. But I'm working. Detective Phelps, badge 1247.
How could I help, Detective?
Can you speak to someone at the Army Air Force Base for me, please?
Of course, Detective.
Tell them I have what I believe is an aircraft part. It's polished metal, light for its size, and it looks like a cone of some sort. It's stamped on the inside. P&W Wasp Major R4360.
I'll get back to you, Detective, when you check in for messages. Anything else?
I need an address for Superior Laundry Services.
Closest store to your location is in Wilshire, 4766 Melrose Avenue.
Thanks for your help.
Alright, now we've got an address. Let's get going.
Jesus,
You're behind the wheel.
What's wrong with the good old-fashioned black and white?
What, you don't think this is cool?
How are we gonna look getting around in this thing, Paul?
It looks cool. Come on. Big old fire truck.
This guy's got a screw loose.
What do you need?
Phelps and Biggs, LAPD. We have one of your laundry tags. Can you tell us who it might belong to?
Are you kidding? I got work to do, Mac. Here's the customer book. Knock yourself out.
Oh, hey, it's another Asian American.
Number was, J2620, Cole.
Who is Hangstrom?
Could be someone else from the factory. Does he have an address?
No. Dead end. Thank you for all your help, sir.
So, we finally get another Asian American in the game, and he's also a laundry attendant.
Cole Phelps, badge 1247.
How could I help, Detective?
I need an address for an Oscar Hangstrom.
Checking. No residential listing for anyone by that name, Detective. Sorry.
Thanks, ma'am.
Huh. Now that's just weird. Oh, gotta wait for traffic to finish going by.
You know the way. You can drive.
We're driving this.
Oh, quit complaining already.
Jesus, Cole. What's wrong with the good old-fashioned black and white?
Alright, now let's see who lives here. Akamoto?
Well, well. Why the cloak and dagger routine, Miss Akamoto?
And why keep a newspaper clipping with your own address in it? I think you would know the number. I think that would be for someone else to rendezvous with you.
Somebody turned the place over. Better watch your step.
Well, at least it's not a woman in the refrigerator.
Do you think I could fit in there? I couldn't fit in there.
I'd like to think you would have had something more to say about getting shoved in a fridge, Herschel.
Wonder where they put all of the shells.
One to the head, one to the heart. Point blank.
Can't look at his shirt.
On Jeans Lindbergh. Very expensive watch. Favored by flyboys. I always wanted one as a kid.
That's funny. As a kid, all I wanted was some food on the table.
Thanks for that, Herschel.
Could be a class ring.
Does this guy not have a wallet? Are we not going to check? Or is that just another thing that goes along with Cole's not below the belt rule?
You know what this is, Biggs?
Sure. The department gives you one of those when you retire.
Wonder if it belongs to the dead man. Or to someone else. Why even stuff the guy in the refrigerator then? So that nobody notices the smell? When did this take place?
Looks like we have a match.
Interesting dame, this Sakamoto. What is it exactly?
Microfilm. A document shrunk to the size of your thumbnail.
Rod must have amazing eyesight.
I'm gonna assume that's a quip, and that Herschel realizes that there are things called magnifying lenses.
Biggs, size 525. I'll need a couple of black and whites at 133 North Vermont Avenue, Wilshire. We'll need an ambulance in the corner. Probably a team from technical services as well.
Alright, now it's my turn.
Operator, give me dispatch.
Putting you through now.
Detective Phelps, badge 1247. Messages, please.
You need to call Ray Pinker urgently.
Can you put me through?
It's ringing now.
We're on our way in.
Nix that. I got a message from Lindbergh Field. An airplane tech there identified your part.
What is it?
He said it was a prop spinner from either a Corsair or a B-50.
A what?
Fits over the center of the propeller and protects the pitch gearing.
So it's a military part.
Could be, but get this. The Spruce Goose runs 8 Wasp R-4360s. I think you better get over there and check it out.
We're on it.
Yeah, might as well. Apparently it's our only option.
You drive. I need to go over the case notes.
Man, Herschel's still angry we're driving a fire truck.
This is a military project, gentlemen. Can you state your business?
Detectives, Phelps and Biggs, LAPD. We're investigating the explosion. We have reason to believe there may be a link to Hughes' aircraft.
I'm sorry, I can't help you there, Detective. Without authorization from military HQ, you won't be allowed onto this facility.
What seems to be the problem, gentlemen? Hey, Biggs. You're not still with the LAPD. Right so, mates. Can you help us out here? Sure.
What seems to be the problem?
We're working the big explosion at the electroplating plant. Found a part there that belongs to one of your planes.
I work head of security for Mr. Hughes now. I'll take full responsibility. I'm sure we can clear this up. Follow me. It's the big hangar. You can't miss it.
Who is Mapes? What's his connection to Howard Hughes?
Vernon Mapes used to work Advice. Word is he runs fuck pads for Hughes' starlets.
A pimp. Earl and Mapes would seem.
Mapes was the role model for creeps like Earl.
You know, it's still a little early for Hughes to have RKO.
Follow me.
He doesn't have any starlets. Yet. And I can't believe it took me this long to realize that he's wearing the wrong outfit. Yeah, I had to reset during one of the last 3 episodes, so that's why his outfit went back to the regular one.
Good day, miss.
But yeah, at least I've corrected it now.
Can that thing really fly?
Mr. Hughes believes so. Amazing, isn't she?
So, this is the spruce.
Jesus Christ, Biggs, you want to get me fired? Mr. Hughes hates that fucking name. It's the H-4 Hercules to you.
You mind answering a few questions, Mr. Mapes?
Call me Vernon, kid. Fire away.
Do you know anything about the explosion that happened at Nicholson Electroplating this morning?
No more than anyone else. Heard the boom while I was shaving. Almost shit my pants. Thought it was Pearl all over again.
So why are your eyes wandering?
Nicholson Electroplating was working on a miracle process to polish aluminum. A process that was very advantageous to airplane manufacturers. You're denying that you knew about it.
It doesn't matter what I deny, kid. It matters what you can prove. You have some evidence that links me personally with Nicholson?
Not yet.
Sorry. Sometimes you have to shake the tree to see what falls out. But you had no personal contact with any of the employees. And you have no idea what caused the explosion.
I'm in security. I handle Mr. Hughes' personal interests, if you get my meaning. I'm not directly involved in manufacturing.
Do you know Tomoko Akamoto?
Never heard of the broad. Why?
You don't happen to wear an LAPD tie pin, do you, Mapes?
Sometimes. I have a couple of them from my days on the force.
Do you know the chief chemist at Nicholson Electroplating, a Harold McClellan?
I've heard of the guy. He was pitching some fancy process to the company.
We know that you were sending parts to Nicholson for testing. The question is whether you were going through Nicholson or cutting your own deal with McClellan.
Interesting theory, kid. How you gonna prove any of that?
Well, we can at least prove part of that.
We found a prop spinner in the wreckage. We believe it belongs to this aircraft.
We sent them some aluminum parts to test. Howard and the Boffins were interested in this guy McClellan's theories. McClellan was cutting out Nicholson. That's not our problem.
Thanks for your help, Mr. Mapes. Do you mind if we have a look around while we're here?
Sure. Knock yourself out.
Want to take a look inside her? And her?
You know, I looked up some information about the Spruce Goose before recording. And apparently it has the longest wingspan of any plane ever, and that includes modern jumbo jets.
McClellan's process was going to replace all this.
I guess that's another company of interest in this story. But yeah, so the reason why it's called the Spruce Goose is because it's largely made up of wood on the inside. Not spruce, like the name, but balsa wood. So even weaker.
Latitude 24 degrees, 15 minutes north. Longitude 76 degrees, 0 minutes west.
So why is that attached to the map here? Well, looks like we can use that. If I can... I know I'm close enough, I can hear the dinging. Pilot seat. But yeah, the Spruce Goose did lift off once. Mostly just to prove that it could. Come on, Cole, sit down. Thank you.
76 degrees west. 24 degrees, 15 minutes north. 76 degrees west. 24 degrees, 15 minutes north. Let's see where this is exactly. The Bahamas. Somebody's already got their maiden flight planned.
It sure isn't gonna happen in this plane, though. I mean, it was designed for transatlantic flights, but it, wasn't designed to get up into the air at this point. Still very much in construction. So again, why was that location placed on the map inside the Spruce Goose? Like, who was hanging out upstairs making plans about the future?
Looks like Mapes' office is in the far corner. Let's go see what he's hiding.
Okay, so, which far corner are we talking about here? It's like the far corner of the hangar, or...
I think that cone could come up on the bed.
That's actually a hint, by the way, I just didn't notice. But you'll understand what I mean by that in a bit. Just a pack of Valors. Ah, pictures.
That is Marie the Body McDonald.
Does Hughes have her on contract to RKO?
Yeah, I bet he does.
Again, that's anachronistic. Hughes wouldn't take over RKO until 1948. Also, who puts their portraits on the writing surface of a desk? I'm guessing that's Hughes. And that's a gun.
This isn't what we're looking for.
But this is the head of security's office, so that's not too unusual. And my question is, why did they put the punch clock machine inside his office? It's kind of an inconvenient place for it. Unless this is the break room, but then what was all that stuff about him having an office? And then why is there a loaded pistol in the break room? Anyway, after a fruitless run through the entire hangar...
Is that a Pratt & Whitney 4360?
Sure is. You know your motors.
Do you mind if I take a look at the prop spinner?
We're getting her ready for sea trials, so be quick about it.
What's the oily covering on the metal?
We coat the aluminum parts in linseed oil to preserve it from oxidization.
Kind of a stupid question there.
Let's see what Pinker has first. He's probably done tinkering with that camera by now.
Thanks for the tour, Mapes.
Always happy to help the department. Hey, don't I know your face from the papers? You're the cop that's stripping that German broad.
Nah, I think you got the wrong guy, Vernon.
Your body requires iron daily. And what better way to give you the iron you need than...
Alright. Well, that guy's a jackass, so let's steal his car.
How are we gonna look getting around in this thing, Cole?
Stylish, that's how.
So McClellan was selling his new process to Hughes and cutting out Nicholson.
This would never fall fair to Hughes. You had a middleman deal with stuff like this.
Someone like Mapes?
The word middleman was invented for guys like Mapes.
Ooh, I see a ramp. I see a ramp. I missed it. But wait, there's more. There's another one.
Tough break being separated from the kids. They're fine. Cut it out.
They're fine. They've got their mother and they've got each other.
What about you?
What about me?
What have you got?
A friend of mine is helping me through it.
Oh, come on, Cole. You don't need to be coy with him. In case you're wondering, there is one more dialogue.
Now that I got you, I may as well ask you.
Ask me what?
The Black Dahlia. Who was it that killed that poor girl?
No official charges have been pressed in the case.
I know that. I'm not looking for the official version.
I made a promise to the department.
These are the guys who sold you down the river.
And that goes to show you what kind of a person Cole is. Law and order even to his own detriment, even when the law and order is correct. Like what he's doing right now, that is a complete break away from his personality. Shows you just how extreme the circumstances are surrounding him at this point.
This guy was willing to write his own mother.
How bad does the corruption have to be for Cole Phelps to get involved against it?
Any messages for me, Hopkins?
Not many you'd want to hear. Newspapers wanting interviews and rookies cussing you out, mostly.
Nothing else.
Pinker wants you in tech services. Maybe you'll be more popular downstairs.
Is there tech services downstairs in all the police department buildings?
Through the red light. Bet you never saw it.
I say we bust in there
And is the staff always the same in each case? Does he just go on rotation?
Hey, Cole. You're not winning any popularity contests upstairs, you know.
Where do you stand?
I think you're a good cop, but I try and stay out of politics.
Everybody tries to stay out of politics, Ray.
Well, don't quote me on it, but I'm hoping that Parker will get the job and clean this place up. I have your photographs. You can use the magnifier. There's quite a lot of detail.
Very funny.
I think you're right, Ray. We have our man. You take a nice photo, Phelps.
For some reason, I didn't notice that those zoom in instructions. So I'm not zooming in right now. Even though he has more to add if you do so.
Howard Hughes, millionaire, industrialist, aviator, and playboy. And Vernon Mapes, ex-dirty cop and business fixer.
And pimp. Don't forget pimp. For a studio that technically doesn't belong to Hughes yet. That's weird. Yep, still haven't seen the zoom in instructions yet. Last photograph, so I'm gonna notice them anywhere. There we go. Finally. Yep, that's an address.
Is this McClellan? Can anyone make out the street number behind him?
Are you kidding? With my eyesight?
Well, no, but thankfully it's in the next photograph, which I saw first. Just give me a moment to realize that. There we go.
Excellent photography, Tomoko. So Tomoko had the goods on McClellan. Too bad they blew the place to hell. I found a similar tie pin along with a dead guy in a fridge.
Hey, I gave his wife a tap. I said all's fair in love and war.
Bringing the Watcher a match for our John Doe. He's obviously the competitive bid. Can you get this over to Lockheed so we can get a name for this guy?
It's already on its way.
So I guess Tomoko was working with Lockheed.
Cole, can you help me with a little experiment? Use the eyedropper in front of you. 1 drop from each of the bottles on the desk. Place the drops in the petri dish.
Did you see Carruthers back there, by the way? Let's go ahead and rewind if you didn't.
Straight through the red light. Bet you never saw it. Guy was willing to write his own mother after I sweated him.
It's okay, guys. Just a little experiment.
Can you guys knock it off? Everyone's still jumping from that bang this morning.
Very funny, Ray. You just took a couple of years off my life expectancy.
Did the same trick to me about an hour ago.
So that was the stuff that caused the explosion.
I think so. Acetic anhydride is almost as explosive as nitro, and when mixed with perchloric acid, it's very unstable. It needs to be cooled constantly. We used linseed oil, but you could add any organic compound to trigger an explosion.
3 little drops.
Yeah, and they were using a 100-gallon vat.
So when it came into contact with trace amounts of linseed oil on that airplane part, everything exploded. So it was an accident, not sabotage. Also, there's a blown up photograph of that microfilm over there. It's not important, but it is a clue, and missing it cost me a star on this case. Luckily, I'm not going for a perfect rating. That just sort of happens anyway.
Can you drive to this one?
So, you know, I don't actually care enough to do this all over again. Yeah, I guess Akamoto was working with Lockheed. McClellan was working with Hughes. And poor Nicholson was just sort of left out of the equation altogether. Also, fun fact, you can run around shooting people because of drawing the weapon there.
This place stinks of petroleum.
Avgas, if I'm not mistaken. It's all around the floor.
I'll say. Look at that. Someone's primed this place to blow up. Now, what have we here? Oscar Hangstrom.
Hangstrom and McClellan are the same man.
Huh. So that's how he was going to escape after making his deal with Howard Hughes.
Hangstrom was flying today on TWA.
Hangstrom is dead, Cole. Why leave your ticket behind?
Maybe just cleaning up.
The gas, Cole, the gas! We gotta get out of here right now! Look, by the stove! Shoot the gas line, Cole, we're out of here! There you are, shitheel. Come on, he's not getting away from us.
I guess he must have taken Herschel's car over here. That was nice of him. Whoops.
Don't leave me hanging out here, Phelps. Move in. Enough games, Phelps. Get this guy out.
Out of the way, guys. Bad time to be crossing the road. Whoops. Definitely heard a thump. Ah, crap. Well, it's not like I would have caught him anyway, because apparently this isn't one of the ones where you're allowed to do that.
Security men, Cole. Stay on mates. Knock them off the road if you have to, but stay on that fucker.
There we go.
Get in close and steer him off the tar. No! You gotta get me closer!
Well, there goes my momentum.
For the tires. That ought to slow this son of a bitch down.
Whoops. I think I may be losing more than 1 star on this case. Well, luckily rubber banding works both ways, so...
Stop right there! Get out of the car slowly! Fire a warning round!
We're gonna have to go through all the security men first. I hope you're ready for a fight,
Aim at
Cole.
the tires!
Oh, hey, this car has a rear engine.
Find some cover!
It doesn't really feel right to be killing all of these military police, since, you know, from their perspective, they're just doing their jobs. They're defending a military location from armed men. Plus, you know, there's only one actual criminal that we're looking for here. Everyone else died in the explosion. Yeah, McClellan, Okamoto, basically confirmed by the end that they are in fact dead. Or at least we never hear from them again, so that they're effectively dead. Alright, now who around here has got a gun? Ah, there's one. And there's your requisite red barrel explosion.
Get in cover now!
There we go. Thompson. Pretty great weapon. Nice and effective. Decent accuracy at range.
Stay in cover.
And we're done.
And by taking Rise and Shine yeast tablet supplements, it helps regain strength and needed pounds to feel and do you.
You're gonna have to explain this to me again. So the guy at the chemical plant
He's planning on selling his magic formula to another company and skipping town with his assistant, but he blows himself up before he can manage it. So why the dead body in the refrigerator?
Mapes, Captain. He was eliminating all competitors for the process. When it went bang, he burnt down the apartment to remove all connection between Hughes and the plant.
Mapes, right. I remember Vernon Mapes. The guy had good, honest cops hanging their heads in shame. Glad he's finally out of commission. I don't know if it'll do you any good, Phelps, but between the spruce goose and half the city exploding, you might just have made the case of the decade.
So, final verdict for Nicholson electroplating. Great set pieces, terrible plot execution. You know, I considered doing The Aviator for this one, that 2004 biopic about Howard Hughes, but I don't know. The case wasn't really about Hughes. The guy doesn't even appear on screen. But there is a film out there that involves but isn't about Hughes. And it even has some espionage and a big shootout at the end. So how about instead, I take a look at 1991's The Rocketeer. The story about the story. First of all, let me start by saying The Rocketeer was created by a studio I've only barely mentioned thus far. Disney. You may have noticed, it wasn't one of the big studios during the golden age of Hollywood, nor was it even a part of Poverty Row. That's because it was something different at the time. Disney produced animated shorts for other studios, not full-length movies. Or at least that's how they got started. In 1928, a year after the first real talkie The Jazz Singer, Disney produced the first cartoon with synchronized audio. You might have even heard of it, Steamboat Willie. It wasn't Disney's first creation, nor the first of his then-current production company, but it and the silly symphonies that followed were definitely what put him on the map. In 1932, he started making full-color cartoons, and he started winning Academy Awards. In 1934, Disney started something that most people at the time considered a completely insane idea. He started production on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first ever full-length animation. The studio basically had to invent several new technologies and figure out how to use rotoscoping, which existed at the time, but which they had never had to use before. The eventual budget would be $1.5 million, 3 times the original budget. But it was such a hit when it finally came out in 1937 that it made back over 4 times that amount. But of course, Disney didn't have its own theater chain since it hadn't needed one, and so it distributed Snow White and its subsequent feature-length animations through RKO, as I've mentioned before. After some financial troubles in the 1940s, Disney released its first ever live-action film, Treasure Island, in 1950. In 1953, after an argument with RKO over the studio's documentary series, Disney created its own distribution arm, Buena Vista Distribution. It was a good time to do so, thanks to the growing independence of the theater chains. There's a lot more to say than just that, but I've got other topics to cover. Specifically, the history of The Rocketeer. The movie is actually a comic book adaptation, and the comic book in question was created as recently as the 1980s by Dave Stevens at the independent comic book publisher Pacific Comics. The series was a tribute to the classic pulp science fiction shorts that used to run alongside feature-length films back when a night at the movies was literally a night at the movies. The Rocketeer was a modern take and a tribute to the Republic serials that starred a character called either the Rocket Man or Commando Cody, depending on the series. The helmet in particular shows some pretty deliberate influence. These serials were part of what's sometimes called the pulp genre. The word originates from the cheap-as-hell paper quality used by literary magazines that popped up in the wake of the paperback boom of the early 20th century. Like the studio system, the magazines were worried more about quantity than quality, and so they published genre fiction that was generally dismissed by the literary establishment. However, these magazines gave recognition and popularity to a lot of now famous authors, including Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, and James M. Cain. Pulp science fiction is basically defined by the way it plays fast and loose with the rules of science, soft science fiction, as opposed to the more realistic hard science fiction. That's not to say that all pulp sci-fi authors were unrealistic. That's just what the name means today. Let me give you an example. One of those Commando Cody serials wound up on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and in them, Cody has to battle the aggressive moon men and their atomic ray guns. And people definitely knew better than to think that there were actual moon men by the 1950s. The story. The Rocketeer opens with a test flight. The head mechanic, Peavy, warns the pilot, Cliff, that the plane is unlike anything else he's flown, and he gets mad when Cliff slaps his gum on the freshly painted rudder for good luck. Cliff then taxis down the dirt runway, kisses a picture of his girlfriend Jenny, and takes off. And as he soars through the sky, the titles tell us that this is Los Angeles, 1938. We next cut rather suddenly to an armed car chase between the police and a couple criminals with an obviously stolen case. And even though this is a PG movie, even though this is Disney, we are seeing a scene that could never have happened back when the Hays Code was still in effect. Specifically, I'm talking about that Thompson submachine gun the gangster in the trunk is firing. Under the code, films would sometimes imply that they exist, but you never really saw them outside of war movies. In fact, let's start up a new counter for all the ways that this film violates the production code. Where was I? Oh, right. Our two plot lines intersect when Cliff decides to fly over the car chase to see what's going on, and the gangster with the Thompson decides to shoot at him. He nails the engine, which starts spitting so much oil that Cliff has to punch out the canopy just to see. On the ground, the gangster car loses the federal agents and ducks into an empty hangar. The feds aren't far behind though, so the surviving gangster decides to switch out the case's contents with an oddly shaped vacuum cleaner. The gangster then drives out onto the runway just as Cliff starts coming in for an emergency landing, and he winds up crashing into the car. The gangster jumps out just before the impact, and afterwards the car crashes into a fuel truck pretty much just for the explosion. Cliff manages to survive the landing, but the plane is a total wreck. The next thing we see is Cliff and Peavy arguing with the federal agents about getting some compensation for the destroyed plane. The feds brush them off and tell them to get a real job, and so Cliff punches one of them in the face. And I think I can count this incident twice for my counter. First, an officer of the law is dismissing the concerns of the public without being a crooked cop. Second, the protagonist just punched a federal agent and will get away with it. Anyway, the surviving gangster heads off to the hospital, and the feds manage to recover the very damaged vacuum cleaner from the car wreckage. They figure it must be the thing they're looking for, so they wrap it up and take it away. We then cut to a certain person in an aircraft hangar who's getting the bad news. Two men in high-ranking uniforms ask him to rebuild the X-3, and oh, hey, that's the guy who played John Locke in Lost. Anyway, his response is that he won't be rebuilding the prototype since he doesn't want anyone to have it now, and he makes his point by throwing all the design documents into the fire. Documents that reveal that this man is Howard Hughes. Back at the airfield, the owner, Otis Bigelow, has decided to drop all the costs of the incident on Cliff and Peavy, because Cliff was technically responsible for making a safe landing. Of course, they don't have that kind of money, but Bigelow is using this as an excuse to force them to do the clown act again for his air show. They reluctantly agree, and although their new plane is nothing but scrap now, they do have an old biplane that's just barely holding together. When Cliff jumps into the cockpit, he notices something under the seat, a package from earlier. Cliff presses a button, and the device powers up and starts flying around the hangar. After turning it off, Cliff notices it has a harness for someone to wear. In the next scene, Eddie Valentine, a gang boss, complains to Neville Sinclair, played by Timothy Dalton, that their simple snatch and grab is turned into a mess. Sinclair, by the way, is pretty clearly Errol Flynn, but with the serial numbers rubbed off. Mind you, Flynn was Australian, not British, but that's not really an important detail. Anyway, Sinclair really wants the package, a rocket, and he's paying Valentine's crew to get it. Actually, it's Jetpack, but Rocketeer is a better name, and at least everyone's consistent about calling it the wrong thing. Back at the airfield, Cliff and Peavy test the rocket by strapping it onto a stolen statue. They tied it to a stake, but it wiggles loose and then screams past them before crashing into a pile of dirt. As they cart it away, Cliff gets the idea to borrow the rocket for a while so that they can put on a show for the Nationals. Peavy reluctantly agrees. As they take a look at the statue's head, Cliff says, "I think we're going to need a helmet." Later that evening, Cliff goes to pick up his girlfriend, Jenny Blake, and we get code violation number 4. A brief shot of a woman's inner thigh. As they catch up with each other, Jenny talks about how she might have gotten a small speaking role in the new Neville Sinclair picture, which is especially nice since she's a fan. She then asks about Cliff's flight, but he avoids talking about the crash. Later, at the movies, the newsreel establishes that the German airship the Luxembourg will be stopping in Los Angeles soon on a goodwill tour. Meanwhile, a large, disfigured man named Lothar sneaks into the wounded gangster's hospital room. Lothar's appearance, by the way, is based on the late actor Rondo Hatton, whom you might know from MST3K and The Brute Man, and he's working directly for Sinclair. He tortures the truth out of the gangster, and then kills him with his bare hands before sneaking out. Cliff and Jenny head to the Bulldog Cafe after the movie, which is where he and all the other flyboys eat. One of the guys, Malcolm, describes the earlier crash, and Jenny gets upset that Cliff didn't tell her. Cliff then gets upset that she keeps not coming to his events because of her career, and so she storms out. Cliff heads over to the house he shares with Peeve and talks about his day, as Peeve cuts up an old radio housing. The next morning, Cliff sees he's turned it into a helmet, and he's not very happy about its appearance. We now find Neville Sinclair filming a swashbuckling movie that's as corny as they come. Cliff manages to sneak on set without really meaning to, and he winds up knocking down one of the walls and almost killing Sinclair. After he says he's there for Jenny, Sinclair tells the director to ban her from the lot. The reason Cliff has stopped by is to patch things up, and to tell her about the rocket, and Sinclair winds up overhearing it through another fake wall. He tries to follow Cliff directly, but loses him backstage. He does spot Jenny, though, and so he butters her up by giving her a bigger role and inviting her to dinner at the expensive South Seas Club. Cliff's trip to the set is making him late for the air show, and when Malcolm overhears Bigelow threatening to throw him and Peavy out, he decides to do the clown act himself, despite not having flown since World War I. Meanwhile, Valentine and his goons have searched the hangar and found Cliff's picture of Jenny. When Cliff finally arrives, Malcolm is in the air and the biplane is falling apart. Even so, Bigelow says it's all part of the show in order to prevent folks from leaving. Cliff straps on the rocket to go save Malcolm, and just before he launches, Peavy slaps Cliff's gum onto the back for good luck. What follows is a long sequence of rather dated special effects in which Cliff saves Malcolm's life, the biplane blows up another of Bigelow's fuel trucks, Cliff loses control and crashes into a pond after flying around for a while, and every newspaper in the whole county runs off to write a front-page article. Afterwards, Bigelow claims responsibility for everything and gives Cliff the name the Rocketeer. Of course, all the groups looking for the rocket now know where it is, and so when the FBI show up that evening, they find Bigelow literally folded in half, though it wasn't before he wrote down Cliff's address for Lothar. When Lothar sneaks into the house, Peavy is writing some technical notes and Cliff is just pulling up. They start fighting Lothar when the FBI show up. Lothar opens up on the agents with twin .45s, and not knowing what's going on inside, the FBI starts shooting the place to hell. Lothar grabs Peavy's notes and runs. Peavy and Cliff escape after him with the rocket. After all of that, we head to the South Seas Club, where Sinclair and Jenny are having dinner, and we see code violation number 5. Way too much cleavage in that dress. I'm also counting this as number 6. Since when W.C. Fields shows up, the camera follows his gaze for a clearly sexualized shot of her chest. Cliff and Peavy are holed up in the Bulldog Cafe's second-story storage room. Peavy wants to go to the FBI, but Cliff doesn't agree, until after the diner owners tell them that Bigelow is dead. Before Cliff can complete a call to the FBI, however, Valentine's gangsters show up and start threatening everyone. Eventually, they notice Jenny's phone number on the wall, call it, and find out she's at the South Seas Club, which Cliff overhears. Afterwards, the patrons overpower the gangsters and Cliff grabs the rocket to fly to the club. Before he leaves, Peavy notices a hole in the fuselage, which he patches up with that wad of gum from earlier. Then, just after Cliff leaves, a gun comes out of the trap door. Cliff sneaks into the club, hiding the rocket in a laundry bag and donning a waiter's outfit. He goes to Jenny's table and uses the pretense of serving soup to give her a message. They meet behind a bush, and although Jenny's initially upset, she comes around when she hears that Bigelow is dead. Cliff tells her to go home to her mother's, and then they kiss. And then Sinclair notices the note, Lothar enters the club, and Cliff makes a quick exit into the kitchen. Cliff grabs his rocket for an action scene in the main room, and Jenny winds up rushing back inside to try and help. And she does help him get away, but in exchange, she gets captured by Sinclair. Jenny wakes up in Sinclair's penthouse just in time to watch him come out of a moving bookshelf. She then pretends to wake up when Sinclair enters the room. Sinclair insists that he's being blackmailed into cooperating. When he starts spouting sweet words, she identifies the movies they're from. Eventually, though, she starts to play along, at least long enough to knock him out with a vase. Jenny then sneaks past Lothar into the library, finds the trick book, and gets into the secret room. There, she finds and steals back Peavy's notes and discovers a German voice on the radio. Turns out Sinclair is a German spy. This is actually based on a real-life but completely false rumor that Errol Flynn was a Nazi spy. And it's also code violation number 6. Anti-Nazi sentiment in a film set before America entered World War II. Fritz Lang actually got into trouble with the production office when he directed Manhunt in early 1941. When Cliff gets back to the Bulldog, he hides the rocket behind the cafe and gets a call from Valentine. They have his girlfriend, and he'll have to bring the rocket to Griffith Observatory at 4 a.m. to get her back. And then the FBI show up and arrest him. Instead of jail, though, they take him to Howard Hughes, which is also where Peavy wound up. Hughes makes the federal agents take off the handcuffs and asks for the rocket, but of course Cliff can't do that yet. So Hughes shows him footage of a failed German rocket test, and incidentally, the man with the pack is Dave Stevens, the man who created the Rocketeer. He then screens a German propaganda film which I can only describe as, historically speaking, completely silly. Hughes then mentions that the Valentine gang is working for a Nazi agent, and Cliff realizes from what he saw at the club that it must be Sinclair. Nobody believes him though, and so he flees by jumping onto a model of the H-4 Hercules. Cliff flies up to Griffith Observatory and confronts Sinclair. In the process, he mentions to Valentine that Sinclair is a Nazi, and Jenny backs him up. This makes Valentine upset. He may be a mob boss, but he's still an American. Oh, and this is Code Violation 7. Criminals must be punished for their actions, and they aren't allowed to make face turns and get off scot-free like Valentine is about to. Unfortunately, that's when Sinclair shouts something in German and a couple Nazi platoons show up out of nowhere. Just when you're about to ask how they got there, the Luxembourg, carefully established earlier, floats in above the observatory. Incidentally, this also explains why he wanted such a specific time and place for the meeting. It seems like Sinclair is about to win, but then the FBI shows up and everybody starts shooting. During the chaos, Sinclair and Lothar take Jenny up into the Zeppelin to lure Cliff in. And sure enough, he grabs a fallen Nazi's Luger and flies after them, with just a moment to pose in front of the American flag. Because of course he does. Cliff and Lothar have a duel on top of the blimp, but not before Lothar wisely belts on a harness first. Unfortunately, this becomes a problem when Cliff knocks Lothar out, and Lothar's body knocks the pilot out of the Zeppelin. When Cliff enters the cabin, Sinclair holds a gun to Jenny's head, and so Cliff gives him the rocket, although not before pulling the gum loose from earlier. They get into a fist fight, and Jenny tries to stop them with a flare gun from the emergency kit. She may have saved Cliff's life, but she also set fire to the cabin, which on a German Zeppelin filled with hydrogen is very, very bad news. Sinclair escapes using the rocket, saying, "I'll miss Hollywood." This turns out to be true. When the rocket explodes, it causes him to blow up the land, part of the old Hollywood land sign. Because of course he does. Cliff and Jenny climb to the top of the blimp, where Lothar is waiting with a switch knife. But that's when the hydrogen bags start exploding, and all three of them start running for the rear. Then an auto-gyro with Peavy and Hughes shows up to rescue them. Lothar doesn't make it though, since he's still wearing that harness. The next morning, Cliff, Peavy, and Jenny are eating breakfast in the Bulldog when Howard Hughes shows up in a black and white copy of the plane from the movie's start. Hughes gives it to Cliff as thanks for all he's done. After that, Jenny hands Peavy the notes she recovered, setting up the idea that the Rocketeer may someday fly again. Final thoughts. So here's another one for you. Why do we love cheese? Now, the Rocketeer was well made, with a carefully constructed plot, but it's also very tongue-in-cheek. The evil Nazis, the helmet that's so dorky even the characters acknowledge it, the idea that you can knock a guy out with a breakaway vase, and the old moving bookshelf trick, and the Hollywood land sign. I once read a review of the movie that said that while Indiana Jones harkens back to the Old Republic serials, the Rocketeer actually was one. While I wouldn't go that far, it's definitely less modern than Indiana Jones. So why do we love cheese? The intentionally silly, like the Rocketeer, and the unintentionally silly, like Birdemic and Plan 9 from Outer Space. These films aren't for everyone, of course, but then neither are horror films or tragedies. So what allows us to forgive in some works things that are unforgivable in others? This may be even harder to define than our love of tragedies, but I think I can explain it in a few words. Honesty, enthusiasm, earnestness, and most importantly, love. People appreciate effort, even if it's misplaced, even if it goes wrong, even if it means tossing realism aside to tell the story you want to tell. People can often sense the love and enthusiasm that go into a work, even if they can't always quantify it. And experiencing that love is the essence of a guilty pleasure. Thanks for joining me again for today's film review. I hope you'll join me next time as we enter the final stretch of LA Noire. Since the last three missions follow a 3-act structure that's independent of the rest of the game, I'll be covering the 3 neo-noir classics which I think most influenced the game's story. The first one is a tale about murder, corruption, adultery, incest, and municipal reservoirs.